So apparently there's a lot of talk about Linux at the moment again, or at least there's a lot of YouTubing on it all of a sudden again, which I suppose is why I'm here. Because a channel called Linus Tech Tips did a video about it apparently. So apparently it's a popular channel. So they did a thing about doing Linux, and so everyone's now talking about what distro and whether I should install Linux. And there's some very simple advice that I have is don't. So yeah, that's a clickbait title obviously, but it comes up every few years. People don't like Windows 8, well, we're going to move to Linux. We don't like Windows 10, we're going to move to Linux. I think the latest one is Windows 11. That has people worried. It's always something that seems to get people worried and they want to shift to Linux. And at the moment it seems to be gaming. Should I switch to Linux for gaming? And now I haven't used a lot of Linux in about 10 years probably, because when I got sick and I came to town, I did get a computer eventually, and I did a bit of gaming, and I only did a bit of gaming and a bit of browsing, and Windows was fine. I just stuck to Windows. But years ago I used to daily drive Linux, and I gamed on it. I mostly played one game, which makes it a bit easier, so I'm playing like EVE Online or something. Very few games, or Linux games, or Minecraft, or whatever. I had a bigger problem with Word programs I was doing, because I write a bit as well, and trying to get file compatibility was always difficult. I use OpenOffice and various things like that, and there was always file compatibility issues. I eventually went to Microsoft Office because of that reason. It's better now, I think, but it was very difficult. But these days, if you just want to play games, then surely you would just get a console, I would think. So I'm not sure if gaming is the real thing. And say if you want to play PC games, okay, that's fine too, but they run on Windows, and I do. I have a Windows machine where I play games, and it works. So and it doesn't seem to matter whether I run Windows 11 or Windows 10. I can load up Steam and play a game, or whatever game I want to play, and it's easy because the manufacturers support Windows, because Windows is out there. I don't know if going to Linux is just to play games. I'm not sure that's a good motivation. Oh, I want to play games, and so I'm going to go to Linux. That just seems like a bad idea. Personally, if I can have two machines, I mean, I have dual booted in the past, but if I can have two machines, one running ahead of me here is my Windows machine. I've got Linux running on this one. That's actually Fedora. You know, two machines, it makes it really good. So even though I have used Linux years ago, it's probably 10 years since I've used Linux full on, especially as a main user system. It has all changed since then. I'm essentially a new user. It doesn't worry me because if I get into something, it's not, I get worried about command line. I might not know the commands, I might not know what the window manager is, or I might not know all the details, and there has been a lot of changes, and so I'm going to annoy people because I'm not into the debate over System D or Wayland or Pipewire, is it? Pipewire versus Pulse Audio. That's all new to me anyway, because we didn't have half of those things didn't exist back when I last used anything, so it's all fairly new to me. So I'm sort of coming into this almost like a new dumb user. All I want to do is get in and install and use software just like I would Windows or anything else. When that's all said and done, in the end you don't install Linux anyway, because Linux is just a kernel. The operating system, to be technically accurate I suppose, is GNU Linux, but even then it's a desktop environment on top of that. If you're talking about just Linux, like I said before, I mean, there's Linux in your phone, so, but it's Android. It's they're all separate distributions, and I'm using Fedora KDE. I'm not installing Linux, and I think that's an important distinction. I think when people install Linux, they have to pick a distro, which is a whole other subject, of course. As for what that distribution might be, I don't think it matters. I am going to do another video. I have been starting to, and I'm going to continue to try various distributions, because I tend to stick to one. I think once you get used to one, and I started way back, there was sort of Slackware. I mean, Debian was around, but there was Slackware and Red Hat. I started with Red Hat. I used that for quite a while. I used Mandrake. I've used Fedora. I did have Slackware as a server, but generally my comfort spot, you might say, is Fedora KDE. So if push comes to shove, if I just want to start and use one, I'll just grab Fedora because I'm familiar with it. I did try Manjaro lately. I've installed even Arch from scratch. Sometimes the scripts or just following the instructions. It's not terrible. Mine ended up not quite right. I was going to try again, but it is a lot of work, and if you're just starting out, you just want something simple to install, and there are a few of those I'll go through, but in the end you just got to pick one and go. What's the best? It really depends on what you're going to do. I have tried a few, and I'm going to try a few more, and I'll do another video probably where just my thoughts on what is the best one, because I don't know if there is a best one, and you can do everything with any of them. It's just somewhat easier for certain things. And the beauty about it is you can install one, try it. It doesn't really matter. They're free. You can get as many as you want. Download them onto a little flashy drive. Stick them in your computer. Install them to your heart's content. I mean, just grab a drive. I mean, everyone's got drives laying around. I've got them just floating around. Like, everyone's got that, right? Maybe not, but there's usually a drive around or something. You just use a spare drive, stick it in your computer, pull the others out even, and that way you're not having to worry about wiping anything out. Just install it. I've had more luck, obviously, with AMD. Just if you're trying different distros, the AMD video cards are going to give you less trouble. Nvidia's fine with a lot of them, but if you just want problem-free installations, or use a VM, just use VirtualBox or something. So there's multiple choices there as well. Editing Me also suggests you can use them as a live CD and test them that way. You can get a bit of a feel. It's probably better to install for a couple of days to get a good feel, because you can only do so much with a live CD. But live CD is handy for, you can do a quick live CD, and that way you'll know straight away, like, ooh, I hate this interface, and saves you the install. So there is the live CD option as well. Also, I think one of the places people get caught out is installing software, because we're used to the Windows way where, okay, there is a Windows store now and you can get some Windows software. No one does that, well, maybe some people do, but generally you get your operating system going, you then go looking for software. You go get Chrome from the Chrome site, you go get, I don't know, what do people put on computers? You go get games from various places. Generally you go to the source of that software, whether you're going to get Adobe or any other, or Minecraft or whatever. You go get that software from the manufacturer. I was going to say Word, but obviously Word's Microsoft, but it doesn't matter. Like, whatever the software is, you're going to go to the source. And with Linux, you're best off, if possible, go to the distribution first. Generally, most of the distributions have package managers, they have package repositories, and if you go there first and get their version, you're going to have a lot less trouble. As a last resort, you then move on to the more generic installs. Best to start with the distro versions first before you move on. Some distros offer multiple package sources for multiple types of packages, whether they're the native package managers of Deb or RPM or Arch packages. they often offer, because there are sources now, sometimes you have to resort to flatpak or something like that, or app images. That's sort of a last resort, but I know some distros do offer multiple sources for the same software, and that gets very confusing. There'll be a deb and a flatpak. Which one do I pick? Best to go with the native first. And Linux is always going to be different, and some people see different as harder. I think that's one of the issues with Windows 11, which I haven't had a lot of trouble with. I had a couple of little glitches, but it's different, and I don't know if different just means harder. I don't quite understand it, because people will pick up, say, an Android phone, and they will use that and quite happily browse and do Facebook, Twitter, or whatever on there, and nobody cares that it's different. And I don't understand. They'll use Windows and then use a phone, and they don't expect the phone to work like the computer. And I think you have to be a bit like Linux, with Linux like that too. I think you've just got to use it for what it's good for. Anyway, I'm going to put Steam on a whole bunch of distros and see which ones are easy. I'm also going to do Steam and Minecraft mostly, because that's the ones I play. And of course, once you got Steam, it's Steam.